Well, look at the map, Gareth. Look at the map.
This has clearly not been a good night for the Conservative Party. It's been a dreadful night for the Labour Party.
And every time I speak to a local Tory, they're begging me for a deal.
Joining me now is the Shadow Finance Secretary, Gareth Davies. Gareth, it looks lovely where you are, but it doesn't look very lovely for the Tories and the rest of the country, does it?
Look, I'm the first to admit this has clearly not been a good night for the Conservative Party. It's been a dreadful night for the Labour Party. But I don't think anybody's particularly surprised given the general election result that we had last year. It's only been a few months since then, and we've got a long way to go until we rebuild that trust and win back that support that we lost. So while it is a terrible night for many of the councillors that we will lose and have lost, and the mayoral candidates that put in so much work, that is terrible. But we are in a process of rebuilding, as you know, and it is going to take some time.
You're in a process of rebuilding. You've had a year to turn it around. It's not that you're barely on the pitch. Is that not a problem? I mean, the result in Runcorn, where you came second a year ago, you're barely scraping 2,000 votes.
Well, I mean, look, just on Runcorn, this is a solid, safe Labour seat, as you know, just as Doncaster is for Labour, and they've just scraped it in Doncaster and lost Runcorn. This is the story to last night is about Labour's immense decline from their most spectacular win last year. Huge parliamentary majority. They can do whatever they want, whether that's taking support away from pensioners or putting £40 billion of taxes on businesses. They can do whatever they want because nobody comes close to them. And yet last night and today, we'll see, Labour have lost that trust, lost that support. People don't believe Keir Starmer, and they are being hurt by Rachel Reeves. And that, for me, is a completely devastating blow for Labour.
But devastating blow for Labour, not delivered by the Conservatives, the official opposition. You've outsourcing the accountability and the outrage and the voters' sentiment about the government. You're having to outsource that to a different party.
Well, there's two things to say about that. First of all, we are the official opposition and we're holding them to account. We're showing up in Parliament, which is not something that many Reform MPs have been doing until hopefully now. We have exposed the significant issues that Labour are causing with their tax rises, with the withdrawal of the winter fuel payments, and we are making changes within the Labour Party through our amendments that they are having to accept, or they are U-turning on policies that are just not going to work. So that is the role of the official opposition, and we're executing on that. And the reason why Labour have sunk so low is because we've identified and exposed those failures of the Labour government. But the second point is, it's a lot easier when you're not in a position of responsibility like Reform are. They can offer anything to everyone. And that's exactly what they're doing. On the one hand, they're offering to, nationalise utilities, while at the same time offering tax cuts. So I think the last election, their promises amounted to about £140 billion. It's just not serious. It's not realistic. And they have no prospect of being able to execute on any of those policies if they were to form a government. And so we're a serious, credible, professional organisation that is rebuilding after losing a lot of trust in the last election. I'm the first to acknowledge that.
Look, Kemi Badenoch's been in the job now for 9 months. This is the first time the voters have had contact with her. It hasn't gone very well, has it? You're talking about a process of rebuilding, but it doesn't look like they like what they see.
Harry, just look at what happened in the last election. We lost significantly, right? It was one of the worst defeats that we've ever had, if not the worst. And so it is going to take time to rebuild that trust. The idea that just in a few months we can completely turn things around is for the birds. Kemi is working very hard day to day to rebuild our party, rebuild our donor base, rebuild our campaign effort, and make sure that we are holding Labour to account, which is our official job right now. We've got to expose Labour for the damage that they're doing, and that's why they've lost so many votes overnight. And I think that is a success for the official opposition to show that Labour are damaging the country, and voters are alive to that. Now, it is so early since the last election to assume that they're all just going to come flooding back to us. Of course they're not. You've got to be humble in defeat.
But you don't have time, though. That's the problem. It's not like previous leaders of the opposition who have, David Cameron or before him, that have all this time to rebuild and rebrand and do all the lovely things you're talking about. When to your right, you have Reform literally eating your breakfast.
So I don't accept that. Reform are not a party.
Well, look at the map, Gareth. Look at the map. Look at the map. They are literally sweeping through places that you need to win to ever have a chance of coming back into government.
I accept that point, but they're also breathing down Labour's neck with a series of policies that Jeremy Corbyn would be proud of. I mean, if you just look at the detail of what Reform are offering or promising to do if they ever made it into government, it's to renationalise our utilities. It's to have huge government. That is not conservative. That is absolutely not conservative, because that's not responsible. It's not serious. They are a party of protest. People are very unhappy with Labour, and they're still unhappy with us, and that's why they've gone to Reform. But Labour supporters, as well as Conservative supporters, have gone to Reform. It's our job now to put forward to the country a centre-right programme for government at the next election, which will be 3-4 years away. We've got time to do that. We have to reflect on why we lost first, and then to put forward some serious solutions as to how to govern. That's going to be the differentiator with Reform, and it's going to be a centre-right proposition, not a proposition that is all over the place. They're offering everything to everybody, and that is not serious.
The voters seem to like it, though. That's the problem. How are you going to convince people, that after 14 years in power, a year of, as you say, rebuilding, all this while, Farage's membership is going up and his votes are going up, and on the left, you're being squeezed by the Liberal Democrats, as I'm sure we're going to see in some of the more rural southern seats that have been, southern councils that are up for grabs today. How are you going? Is it even possible to ride those two bikes?
So I think the starting point is to show that you're professional, show that you're credible, and show that you're united. And that has not always been the case in our party. And so under new leadership, we are now united and we are credible and professional. You can just look at the way in which we've held the government to account, exposed them for what they are. And I think come the next general election, to answer your question, why would they come to us? Because they know that we're credible and that we can run the country with a team of people who are professional.
With all due respect, Mr. Davies, do the voters know you're credible? Because it seems to me they think the exact opposite, and they haven't seen anything in the last 9 months to make them change their mind.
Right now, and it is hard to cut through right now, but over the course of the Parliament, voters will see a very big difference between what we are offering, which is a credible alternative government, and Reform, which say all the things that they want to hear but cannot offer any of them.
You made that point. Reform MP in South Ballaston and East Thurrock MP James Murdoch is now with us. James, a big night for Reform, but the official opposition just say you're a party of protest trying to be all things to all people. What do you say to that?
Yeah, that's a bit silly, isn't it? There's a number of points there. I mean, if we talk about our utilities, we've literally got excrement in our rivers, and that's unacceptable for a first world. We've got our only virgin steel manufacturing plant risking closing down, which I would also make the case is completely unacceptable in a world as dangerous as the one we're currently living in. So, look, it's not about the small C conservatism, which was just mentioned there. Even though I admit I am a small C conservative, it is about being practical, and it's about common sense here, and it's about doing what's right for the nation. And I think last night a lot of people got that message.
Being all things to all people, it does tend to help parties in opposition. The Lib Dems made a very good fist of it for a long time. Isn't it, Mr. Murdoch, Mr. McMurdoch? The fact is that, you are now going to actually have to prove that Reform can run stuff, be it councils, another MP, possibly mayoralties coming later down the line later today. Is it a help or a hindrance to actually have reached this watermark where you're actually going to have to start defending your record?
Good. It's a huge help. And that's exactly the point. I appreciate any criticisms that come in. It's perfectly natural, perfectly reasonable. But actually what we're seeing when you cut through all the noises, every time we set a target, we don't just hit it, we smash it. And that's the difference. We've got people who are not acting on sort of like a career of politics and some of the nastiness that comes with that. There's just a practical element of delivering for the country, and that means being adaptable, looking at the problems and hitting them head on. And so far, we are absolutely doing a fantastic job of that, thanks to our head office and thanks to Nigel Farage, who's doing a phenomenal job as our leader. Is
it all professional and happy clappy as you make out though? In the last few weeks, we've seen one of your MPs, Rupert Lowe, kicked out the party. He's now trying to, he's now sending letters before action, legal letters to the leader. You've got Ben Habib, the former deputy leader, setting up his own political party. There's rumblings about some of the relationships around Zia Youssef, the party chairman. Is it actually as sunny and optimistic as you're saying? Because it looks for me that it looks quite divided at points.
No, I think there's a few things here. Look at what people do, not what people say. I think Rupert's a fantastic MP. I'm going to do everything I can to sort of steady the waters over time there. But look, what have people learnt from this? They've learnt that the party is not to be trifled with, and neither's Rupert, and that's not a bad thing. What's happening outside of our party with other people, it's up to them. And competition is a good thing, so I'm all for it. And if it helps the country, then great. But look, how are we not doing a fantastic job? We got in July with over 4 million votes. We've got more candidates seated in this last local election that we're having yesterday and counting on today than any of the two major parties. And that's the first time in a century. Just mark us on what we're doing. We're doing a fantastic job.
James, stay there. I'm going to go back to Gareth. Gareth, across the political map that we've seen so far in these local election results, there's a number of seats where the Conservative Party have achieved a small amount of votes, but more than the votes between Reform and Labour, and handed those council seats to Labour. If that was replicated across the country in seats, in Commons seats, we're essentially voting Tory instead of Reform is going to allow another Keir Starmer government. Surely the time has come for some form of arrangement or pact where the party with the most obvious chance of beating Labour surely has to step aside, surely has to be given a clear run.
Well, it is right that I want to get rid of Labour. I think the damage that they're doing to our economy is just unbelievable and being felt every day by businesses and families and pensioners across the country. I'm in Lincolnshire right now, and farmers will tell you how devastating the family farm tax is, and that's why we've led the charge against that.
They're voting Reform.
Well, not necessarily. We've not got the results yet, but let's see in Lincolnshire how that transpires. But what I would say about a pact with Reform is that this is a party that's trying to destroy the Conservative Party. It's a party that is for very big state, very left-wing policies that Jeremy Corbyn would be proud of and actually included in his 2017 manifesto. What we want is the country driven by conservative values, centre-right policies that actually will unite the country after this Labour government. And I'm confident that as time goes by, as we rebuild, it is very early days, but as we rebuild, we will be able to do that.
Just on that point, though, just quickly, go off on a slight tangent. Is it Conservative Party policy that you would have let British Steel go to the wall rather than stepping in and nationalising our last domestic steel production? Is that what the Conservatives are saying? Because you're accusing other people of having Jeremy Corbyn-style politics, but we're talking about the nationalisation of British Steel. You would have let it go to the wall.
That's not what I'm talking about. We would have assessed that differently and acted quicker than Labour, but to massively nationalise all utilities, as Reform have proposed several times, that would not be sensible, and it would cost a significant proportion of our GDP to do so, and would not enable them to cut the taxes that they say they want to cut. And so, while it was described earlier by Reform on your show as silly, it's a perfectly reasonable question to ask as to how that £140 billion of spending would be paid for that he put forward. Now, the punchline here is that Reform are now going to be in a position of responsibility. They're going to have to take responsibility, and we're going to hold them to account, and the country will be able to make a judgment of that several years from now.
James McMurdoch, no deal, says Gareth Davis. No pact, nothing of the sort. Is that really credible that in 4 years' time you're allowed to sit and watch Labour come through the middle?
Well, look, it's interesting that he would say that, because it's actually Nigel saying no deal. And every time I speak to a local Tory, they're begging me for a deal or to lose an election map pack from somewhere. Look, we have to listen to our voters and we have to do what's right for the country. The gentleman's talking a very reasonable game around small c conservatism, which I completely agree with. But look, Nigel's been very clear, and so are our voters, to be completely fair. They don't want a party that says one thing and then does something else. And unfortunately, we've got a long track record of that with the Conservatives at the moment. Now, that's not to say that there aren't a few very good MPs within their ranks. And in fact, I think around a third of them are actually Conservatives. But the other 2/3, not so much. So we have a problem there, and we'll need to get around that before anything else.
Final question to you both. Gareth Davis, Kemi Badenoch's going to be the next Prime Minister? Yes or no?
We're doing everything to make sure that's the case.
Yes or no?
Yes, that will be the case.
You got there eventually. James McMurdoch, Nigel Farage, next Prime Minister, yes or no?
Easy yes.
See, look, there we go. Not quite harmony, but finally a question answered. Gentlemen, James McMurdoch from Reform, Gareth Davis from the Tories, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.